Morgan with a new video from Colored and Confetti. Today's video, I will be talking about my tips for a smooth military PCS move. I wanted to make this video because I know there's a lot of military spouses out there and people affiliated with the military, and I know for me personally, when I was doing my moves, when my husband and I first had gotten married, there wasn't a lot of resources available for tips and information on how you can make this process as smooth as possible. Let's be honest, you get into a routine, you start to really enjoy your new duty station, and then boom, you get orders that you have to go overseas or cross country and you're not going to see your family, or you're not going to see your friends, or your kids are going to have to change schools. So these are just some tips that have been helpful for me to kind of ease that transition and make something that's very stressful a little bit less stressful by planning and just kind of going over things that have been helpful and useful for me and my family. So you can probably expect to receive orders about a year out from the time you will need to check into your new duty station. That's not always the case. Anytime you're dealing with the military, you kind of have to be really flexible because they don't really care about what you have going on. We actually, this last move, we got orders while my husband was deployed overseas, and we only got 6 months to be at our new duty station. Not to mention there was a hurricane on the East Coast where we were being sent to, and it basically made housing impossible because there was a hurricane and nothing was available to rent. It was a disaster. So with that being said, you have to really kind of look for the positive. You have to, if you've been on the East Coast your whole time in the military and you're getting sent to the West Coast or vice versa, look at what you'll be able to experience in that new area and just kind of ask around and see, what everybody says about the new location, and just know that you'll be able to get into a new routine at your new duty station once you're all settled in. My first piece of advice is to get on base housing waiting lists as soon as possible. I know some bases, they have waiting lists that are over a year long, so definitely you want to get on that list sooner rather than later. Even if you don't want to live on base, or you think you want to find a rental, or maybe you want to purchase a home, it's always nice to have that as an option in case worst comes to worst, something falls through with your rental, which sometimes that does happen. You just always want to have that as an option. I know me personally, I feel more comfortable living on base because my husband is gone all the time, and I just enjoy, that little added piece of security, with the gates, and I just enjoy living on base. One more tip is that if you are going to live out in town, you definitely want to check with whatever state you're moving to. I know in North Carolina, you have to live in the district that your kids are actually going to school in. So they don't do, inter-district transfers. So you definitely want to think about that and kind of ask around. Like I said, ask your fellow spouses who's been in the area, what's good schools. Do your homework because that's going to play a big factor. Obviously, you want your kids to get a good education. Another great resource during this initial PCS process is to check your local base. They offer a lot of different classes and resources specifically for this move. I know there's workshops that they talk about finances, they talk about just all of the process, kind of laying everything out. That's really helpful because I know in the beginning when my husband and I, again, when we first got married, this information wasn't made available, so you kind of just had to figure things out on your own, which makes it even more stressful. You're already, a bunch of different things have to happen, a bunch of logistical things, a bunch of, how are we going to get this over here? And so it's definitely nice to have people that are the professionals kind of lay out step by step and kind of give guidance, that do this all the time and have seen different scenarios and just can kind of put your mind a little bit more at ease. My next tip is to start decluttering. In this process, it doesn't matter if it's a year or 6 months out, whenever you get those initial orders, I just think it's really good to start getting rid of things that you no longer need or that you don't really want to take with you on your, to your new location. The reason why I say that that's important is because in the military, whenever you do a household good movement, you're only allotted so much weight. So you definitely don't want to go over that weight limit because they will actually charge you. So you kind of want to go through things that, you know, like I said, that you don't want to take with you or that you're just not using anymore. And you can post stuff on Facebook groups, or you can just donate the things to your neighborhood. And definitely, especially in military communities, people are always looking for things that, you know, they'll take it off your hands easily, so you won't have it, you know, laying around. My next tip would be to start a budget specifically for this move. Your spouse can actually request an advance pay of 1 month. So basically what that means is whatever they make in a month, they can request that as an advance in a lump sum whenever they start, you know, you start your move. However, the problem with that is that that pay gets checked over 1 year. So basically, for the next 12 months, your pay is short about, you know, anywhere from $100 to $300 a month. And that's kind of a lot of money to be missing from your paycheck when you could have just kind of budgeted and put a little bit of money aside to kind of, you know, plan for the unexpected things in your travels. I mention unexpected things because, again, anytime in the military, it's like Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will. You kind of, in your budgeting, need to plan for, you know, if you allot this much money for a hotel, you kind of need to look at what your plan looks like if it costs more. You also need to think about things, if you are driving, you need to think about things like a flat tire or your car breaking down, because they will happen. They have happened to myself, and it's, you know, you definitely want to be able to take care of it when it happens, because it's already super stressful. And then you have, you know, on top of that, if you don't have the money to do it, that just adds a whole nother level of stress that you really don't need. So my next tip is for people that have pets. It's really important to, you know, when you get your pet or you have your pet, imagine traveling cross country with your pet. Imagine being in a situation where rentals, you know, they only take dogs up to a certain size, or if you have a cat, some places don't take cats. Just really thinking about those things and kind of putting things in place with your family, with your friends in your area that you're in to kind of assist in that process. I know we were in a major dilemma. Again, like I stated, we were moving when there was a hurricane, which basically we couldn't move on base because there was no base housing. They were shut it off to everybody. And in addition, the people that had damages, you know, to their base housing had to move out in town to rentals. So if you were coming in from another state, there was nothing available to rent. People were having to buy homes that had never seen homes. So long story short, a lot of places we would find a rental, but they wouldn't accept our dog because he was over 50 pounds, or just a lot of different situations. We were contemplating having our dog flown. However, we were going to have to buy a kennel because he is so large. They need a certain amount of room to move around on the airplane. Just kind of thinking about those things. If you are going to fly your dog, you know, having friends that can drop him off at the airport, but then there's just a lot of things to consider. When you get to your new location, if the area is small, you might have to drive 4 hours to the major airport. There's just a lot of things to think about, and that's really important to kind of plan those things out. That probably should be high on the priority list of when you actually do start planning things and sequencing things, you know, just time frames, how long it takes, just different things, so that can be one less thing that you have to worry about, because nobody wants to leave behind their dog or think about, you know, how is their transition going to be. So those are just what I recommend. My last tip is that you will need to kind of think ahead and kind of plan backwards. You have to really kind of decide right away, are you going to be driving or are you going to be flying? My experience comes from driving, and I know we have 2 vehicles, so you kind of have to think about that. The military will only pay for gas for one vehicle, or for one vehicle. That means that if you have 2 vehicles, you know, you can drive one and your spouse can drive the other. Or in our situation, our second car is a little bit older, so we actually had to pay to have it shipped. And shipping a vehicle cross country, it was about $1,500. So that's why that whole planning process is very important, because you have to have that much money to ship your vehicle. That's why the savings is very important. I also think that it's very important to plan for the unexpected in everything. If you're pregnant, you kind of, depending on how far along you are, you kind of need to plan for giving birth on the road, or plan for your kids getting sick, plan for your dog getting sick. You kind of just have to think of all of the worst case scenarios and kind of, throw that into your plan, because, again, nothing goes according to plan. Things are kind of crazy, and they're like that for a majority of the time. From the time you get orders until you actually, even once you check in, things are very, up in the air. There's a lot of tension because it is super stressful, and these are just things to kind of help mitigate some of those things. One more thing, don't forget to check the weather and kind of look at your trip. My husband did 8-hour shifts of driving. He did 8 hours a day. However, he said that that was way too much driving. So you kind of need to assess your trip and see what your plan looks like at driving 8 hours a day, driving 6 hours a day, and then driving 4 hours a day, and just kind of checking the weather a lot. What time are you stopping to, go to sleep if you only drive 6 hours a day or 8 hours, because obviously it's going to change the city that you end up in. We had planned on driving further than we actually did. However, we checked the weather and we ended up stopping in a hotel because there was a humongous storm that was going through Oklahoma, and it was very dangerous. So you just kind of have to be aware of what's going on as you're driving. I know checking your phone or checking the weather channel days before, for us, it showed the weather was clear. However, when we were, 100 miles away from that location, it said, do not drive, it's not safe for anybody to be out on the roads. So definitely you want to pay attention to that as you're actually on the road and in the car. Something that's also really important, it's very easy to get sucked up in the move and worrying about what's going to happen with the move and the entire planning process. If you do have kids, it's very important to talk to your kids about the move and just trying to kind of put their minds at ease about the move and making it positive for them, letting them know all the things they'll be able to experience and sightsee at the new duty station, and just kind of sharing your own experiences about how you had to move as a child, or, making new friends, just anything you can do to kind of include them in the conversation, to kind of let them know that everything will be okay. Hopefully you will find these tips useful. I know these are things that I have experienced and I have learned from. It can be very overwhelming to have to do all of these things, because it has been my experience that all of the planning, all of the packing, all of the cleaning, all of the signing the kids up for school, all of the looking for houses is generally done by the spouse. Just because your husband's still going to have his same workload, he's not going to get time off to kind of, put his mind to planning all of this stuff out. So try not to get overwhelmed. Try to, find outlets, something to do to kind of, relax and take your mind off of this temporarily. It's a very difficult time because you are leaving an area that you love. Your kids are going to have to be moving and starting over in a new school. You just really have to try to find the positive and, think of it as a fresh start and being able to kind of start a new chapter in a new area. If you like today's topic, you can visit my blog, which will be linked in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Have a nice day.